Every winter morning you sit in your car, engine running, waiting for the windshield to clear. You have tried the expensive sprays. You have tried the wipes that come in resealable pouches. You have wiped the inside with newspaper, with vinegar, with shaving cream, because someone on the internet swore it worked. And every single time, within 3 to 7 days, the fog returns. You accept this. You accept it the way you accept that light bulbs burn out and that tires wear down. You believe fogging is a physics problem that requires ongoing management, and that belief has cost you hundreds of dollars across your driving life on products engineered to fail on a schedule. Here is what no one in the automotive aftermarket wants you to understand. There's a mineral compound that costs less than $2 at any hardware store. One application with a cloth eliminates fogging on any glass surface for an entire season. Not reduces it, not delays it, eliminates it completely. A windshield treated once in October stays perfectly transparent through every frozen morning, every rainstorm, every temperature swing until spring. A bathroom mirror coated with the same solution never fogs during a hot shower for months without retreatment. This is not new science. This is not a recent discovery buried in some obscure journal. Optical engineers identified this principle in 1911. The United States military applied it to combat optics during the Second World War because fogged equipment was getting soldiers killed in jungle conditions. Venetian glassmakers used plant-derived versions of this same compound for 300 years to protect their panels during transport. The knowledge existed. It was proven. It was deployed at industrial and military scale, and then it vanished from every consumer guide, every maintenance manual, every product recommendation within a single generation. Not because it stopped working, because it worked too well, too permanently, and too cheaply to sustain a market built on repeat purchases. The anti-fog industry generates hundreds of millions annually, selling you solutions calibrated to expire in days, and the one fix that lasts a season sits 3 aisles away from those sprays, ignored, unlabeled, and never once mentioned on the packaging of the product next to it. Consider the arithmetic your dashboard never displays. One canister of commercial anti-fog spray costs roughly $8 and delivers, at best, 72 hours of clarity before the haze returns. A single winter season spans approximately 20 weeks of cold mornings. That is 7 canisters minimum, $56. Committed to a product engineered to expire before your next paycheck arrives. Exposed to a full calendar year of shifting seasons, the figure doubles past $100, quietly compounding, in the same way a subscription drains an account nobody audits. Now place that against a $2 bottle of sodium silicate dissolved in water, applied once with a cloth, holding its transparency for an entire season without retreatment. The delta is not marginal. It is a 96% cost reduction hiding behind a label nobody reads. But the numbers alone are not the damning part. The damning part is the timestamp. In 1911, a physicist named Fraunhofer working inside the Carl Zeiss Optical Laboratory in Jena, Germany, documented precisely why this works. He observed that silicate-treated glass converts its surface energy from hydrophobic to hydrophilic. Moisture still condenses, but instead of clustering into discrete droplets that scatter light into white haze, it spreads into a film so thin it becomes invisible. The glass fogs transparently. Zeiss incorporated this treatment into the maintenance protocols of every microscope and telescope leaving their facility. That was 114 years ago, and Fraunhofer was late. Venetian master glassmakers on the island of Murano had already been washing their finished decorative panels with concentrated potassium silicate derived from wood ash lye since approximately 1650. They did not understand surface energy. They understood that untreated glass stored in humid warehouses developed irreversible haze, and treated glass did not. 3 centuries of empirical proof existed before a single physicist wrote the equation. So the evidence is not a single data point buried in an obscure journal. It is a continuous, verifiable line stretching from 17th century Venice through early 20th century German optics, exposed in plain documentation, exposed in plain chemistry, yet somehow absent from the label of every product sitting on the shelf beside it. The question was never whether the solution existed. It existed before your grandfather was born. Murano glassmakers sealed their export pieces with potassium silicate washes 300 years before a single chemist could explain the molecular mechanism. They documented the outcome in workshop ledgers passed from master to apprentice, generation after generation, registered as a guild trade secret. The asset was the knowledge itself, and the owners kept it precisely because its value depended on scarcity of access, not scarcity of material. Now trace the ownership forward. In 1911, optical engineers at a German lens company rediscovered the same principle while investigating why certain chemical treatments improved coating performance. The United States Army applied it to infantry optics during the Second World War, preventing fog-related equipment failures across entire battalions. At every stage, the entity holding the formula extracted its value by restricting distribution, not by selling the mineral. The mineral was never the product. Your ignorance was. Here is what the molecular reality looks like when sodium silicate bonds to glass. The outermost layer of any glass surface carries hydroxyl groups that are only moderately hydrophilic, which is why untreated glass produces individual water droplets that scatter light into opacity. A dilute silicate solution bonds to those hydroxyl groups through a condensation reaction, extending the silicate network until the surface contact angle approaches 0 degrees. At 0 degrees, water vapor physically cannot bead. It spreads into a transparent film at the molecular scale, and fogging becomes structurally impossible. A 2014 study published in Applied Surface Science tested sodium silicate panels against 6 leading commercial anti-fog products under controlled condensation. The silicate-treated glass maintained full optical clarity through 100 consecutive fogging cycles. Every commercial product failed between cycle 8 and cycle 23. Complete failure across all 6 by cycle 30. The mineral outperformed the commercial shelf by a factor no brand has ever printed on its packaging. So the stratification becomes arithmetically undeniable. One layer of people knows a $2 mineral solves the problem for an entire season. Another layer of people repurchases an $8 spray every 72 hours, believing the problem is simply difficult. The first group owns the asset. Here's what the exit from that cycle actually looks like, and it will disappoint you with how ordinary it is. No subscription service, no smart device, no monthly shipment arriving in branded packaging. The entire procedure fits inside 90 seconds of your morning, costs less than a gas station coffee, and never needs repeating until spring. You walk into any hardware store, not the automotive aisle where they shelve the anti-fog sprays next to the air fresheners and the overpriced microfiber kits. You walk 3 aisles past that to the concrete and masonry section, where nobody's trying to sell you a lifestyle product. You find a bottle labeled water glass or concrete sealer, sodium silicate solution. It sits there for $2 or $3, ignored by every consumer who never learned what it does to glass at the molecular level. You buy it, you take it home, you set it on the kitchen counter next to a measuring spoon and a cup of distilled water. 1 teaspoon of sodium silicate into 1 cup of distilled water. That is a 2% solution. You are not eyeballing this, you are not improvising. You measure it the way a pharmacist measures a compound, because precision is what separates a permanent treatment from a streaky mess. You will blame on the method instead of your execution. You stir it until the liquid looks like plain water. Then you take a clean microfiber cloth, not the one you used on the dashboard last week, a fresh one, and you wipe that solution across the interior surface of your windshield. Not the outside, the inside. Because fog forms on the interior glass where your breath and body heat meet cold air conducted through the exterior surface. You apply it in straight, overlapping passes. No circular buffing, no rushing. You coat every square inch of interior glass, the windshield, the side windows, the rear window, then you walk away. You let it dry until a faint haze appears on the surface, a thin mineral film bonding to the silica already present in the glass itself. That haze is the silicate curing into a permanent hydrophilic layer that will force every water molecule to spread flat instead of beating into the tiny droplets that scatter light and blind you. Once that haze forms, you come back with a second clean, dry microfiber cloth. You rub the surface with firm, consistent pressure until the glass looks perfectly clear. That is the entire operation. No heat gun, no curing lamp, no second coat required. The mineral has fused with the glass at a chemical level that no windshield wiper, no rain, no weeks of temperature cycling will undo until 3 or 4 months have passed. One application covers an entire winter. 1 teaspoon from a bottle that contains enough solution for dozens of treatments across every glass surface in your household. The total expenditure is $3 and 4 minutes of labor performed once, replacing what the average driver spends $60 to $80 per year maintaining through weekly reapplication of products engineered to fail on schedule. That gap between $3 and $80 is not savings. It is the exact measurement of how much the repeat purchase model was extracting from you. Every single year, you participated in it without questioning why the solution never lasted. So here is what you actually walk away with, and it is not a fortune. It is a margin. A sliver of breathing room that compounds silently while the people around you keep hemorrhaging small amounts on solutions engineered to expire. That driver in northern Wisconsin did not become wealthy. He saved $60 across one winter, but he saved it again the next winter and the one after that, and every season he did not reach for the weekly spray was a season he spent zero cognitive energy solving a problem that no longer existed for him. That is the real dividend, not the $40 sitting in his account, the absence of a recurring decision, the elimination of a friction point that used to bleed him dry in attention before it ever touched his wallet. You are not going to hear a promise here that this knowledge will change your net worth. It will not. What it changes is the texture of your weeks. One fewer product to remember, one fewer purchase to justify, one fewer moment standing in an aisle comparing labels on bottles that all contain the same temporary chemistry dressed in different packaging. Multiply that across every category where a permanent fix exists, but a disposable one gets sold to you instead, and you start to see the shape of the exit. It is not dramatic. And if this is not for you, that is the other promise. You can walk away from this and lose nothing. You already own the information. A hardware store shelf holds the bottle. The application takes 11 minutes.